All right, so get ready because today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Stoicism.
Yeah.
But we're not just talking about the, the basics, right?
Go
Like,
ahead.
we're going to try to look for some subtle signs that maybe you're already stronger than you think.
Yeah.
And, based on all the notes and articles and things that you sent over,
Yeah.
we've sort of distilled it down to, like, 7 pretty fascinating indicators
Okay.
that are pulled from this ancient philosophy.
I like it. I think this is really cool because Stoicism, it really kind of flips the script
Uh-huh.
on what we consider to be strength.
Yeah.
It's not always about outward appearances or
Oh.
brute force or anything like that.
Right.
It's about resilience,
Yeah.
self-mastery, like these inner qualities that kind of help us navigate all the challenges that we face.
Okay, so let's unpack that then.
Okay.
And let's start with our first sign here.
Okay.
Facing your fears.
Good.
Now, I think everybody can relate to that feeling. You've got a big presentation coming up or a tough conversation, like your heart's pounding, your
Right.
palms are sweating.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the Stoic twist on this.
Okay.
It's not about the absence of fear.
Right.
It's about acting in spite of it.
It is.
It's about
yeah.
almost using the fear as fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the sources you sent, there's a great example.
Yeah.
Imagine, you've got this decision to make. It's a difficult decision.
Right.
And you can just feel that internal struggle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you push through anyway.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example of what the Stoics considered a display of strength.
It is.
Recognizing you can't always control what happens,
Right.
but you can control your response.
Exactly. Yeah, you can control how you react to things.
So it's almost like having that internal dialogue with yourself and saying
Right.
okay, I'm feeling this, but I'm going to move forward anyway.
Yeah. Totally.
And that reminds me of a time when I was terrified to actually...
Oh, hold on. Before you jump into that story,
Oh, okay.
there's an even deeper layer here, I think.
Okay.
That the Stoics would say it's not just about pushing through,
Okay.
but it's about using that fear as an opportunity to practice what they called negative visualization.
Okay.
So basically, mentally preparing yourself for the worst case scenario.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So instead of letting the fear cripple you, you're basically sort
Yeah.
of taking its power away by saying, okay, what's the worst that could happen? I can handle that.
Exactly. It's a mental exercise in resilience.
I like it.
And this actually transitions perfectly into our next strength,
Okay.
taking responsibility.
Okay, so how does that play into this? I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to blame others
Right. It's super easy.
when things go wrong, right?
Totally.
Right.
So the Stoics believed that blaming others
Okay.
was a way of basically giving away your power.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
instead, they said, you need to focus on what you can control.
Uh-huh.
And that's your choices and your actions.
Your responses to things.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not about beating yourself up when you make mistakes.
Right.
It's about seeing those mistakes as opportunities for growth.
So that's where this idea of progress over perfection comes in.
Exactly.
It's not about never messing up.
Right.
It's about learning from the mess-ups.
Exactly. And there's actually this Stoic principle
Okay.
called the dichotomy of control.
Okay.
And it's basically distinguishing between what we can influence
Yeah.
and what we can't.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So by focusing on what we can control, which is our own sphere of control, our choices, we become more self-aware and less reactive to everything that's going on around us.
Okay, so blaming others is almost like saying, I'm powerless in this situation.
Yeah.
Whereas taking responsibility is like, okay, I have the power to learn and grow from this.
You got it.
Okay.
And when you take ownership of your choices, that empowers you to make another crucial choice,
Okay.
which is setting boundaries.
Boundaries. Okay, so we've gone from
Yeah.
facing fears to taking responsibility, to
Right.
setting boundaries, like
Yeah.
saying no.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this picture of strength?
Well, think about it. If you are constantly saying yes to everybody
Mhm.
and everything, are you really in control of your own life?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So boundaries are about recognizing what truly matters
Mm-hmm.
to you.
Yeah.
What are your values?
Okay.
And protecting your energy, your time, all of those things.
I used to think that boundaries were like selfish,
Right.
like putting up walls.
Right.
But this reframes it as self-respect,
It is
like
true.
having
It absolutely does, yeah.
respect for yourself and your time.
And it ties back into that dichotomy of control,
Yeah.
right? You can't control
Right.
what other people ask of you,
Right.
but you can control whether you say yes or no.
It's like no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain yourself all the time.
Exactly.
Right. And it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier about responsibility. By setting boundaries, you're taking responsibility for your own well-being.
Exactly. It's all interconnected, right? So taking responsibility empowers you to set these boundaries, which then allows you to show up more fully in other areas of your life.
It's about aligning your actions with your values.
That's it.
Okay, so we've covered facing fears, taking responsibility, setting boundaries.
It seems simple.
It does.
But it's packed with Stoic wisdom.
It is. And it's surprisingly powerful, I think.
Very powerful. And speaking of powerful,
yes,
our next strength is a big one, and one that's often misunderstood.
Okay.
Embracing vulnerability.
Okay, now this one throws me for a loop because, I mean, how is showing vulnerability a sign of strength?
Right. It seems counterintuitive.
It does. It seems counterintuitive.
It does.
It's like,
it goes against our cultural narrative of strength.
Yeah.
You know, of like being tough and never showing weakness.
Yeah.
But the Stoics understood that true strength came from acknowledging our full range of human emotions, including vulnerability.
So it's not about like denying or suppressing those feelings. It's about
leaning into them.
Leaning in.
Yes. Think about how much courage
Yeah.
it takes to admit that you're struggling,
Yeah.
or to ask for help,
Yeah.
or to just show your authentic self, imperfections and all.
Right.
And that's not weakness.
Right.
That's an act of defiance
That's interesting.
against the pressure to appear strong all the time.
I'm starting to see now how
Yeah.
these strengths kind of build upon each other. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, taking responsibility and setting boundaries almost like creates a space where you feel safe enough
Totally.
to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And to say, hey, I'm not perfect. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Right.
Yeah, and the key here is that the Stoics saw this
Okay.
as a key part of our shared humanity,
Okay.
right? We all experience hardship, we all experience loss,
Right.
we all experience fear, and those shared experiences, I think, connect us.
They do.
And so by being vulnerable, we're not just being authentic, we're also acknowledging our common humanity.
Yeah.
And that helps foster connection and understanding with others.
Breaking down those walls of pretense.
Absolutely.
And like connecting on a deeper level.
It creates this ripple effect, you know?
Yeah.
When one person is willing to be vulnerable,
Right.
that can inspire others to do the same.
Yeah.
And then it leads to these deeper, more meaningful connections.
Okay, I'm getting this.
You got it.
It's like vulnerability is almost this bridge
Yes.
between our own individual experience and like the shared human experience.
Yes, exactly.
It's breaking down the walls and
Yes.
connecting on a deeper level.
Yeah. And that connection, that sense of shared experience,
Yeah.
can be a powerful source of strength
Okay.
when facing life's inevitable challenges.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our next sign,
Okay.
perseverance.
Oh, perseverance.
Yes.
That ability to keep going when things get tough.
It's that grit.
It is. It's that resilience. It's like we all,
Yes.
you know, it's something we admire in others.
It is.
Right?
We do.
We see that.
The Stoics had a very unique perspective on this, though.
Okay.
They saw obstacles not as roadblocks,
Okay.
but as opportunities for growth.
Okay.
So think about it. A muscle only gets stronger
When it's challenged.
when it's challenged, right?
Yeah.
Same with our inner strength.
So every challenge, every setback
It's a chance.
becomes a chance to flex those resilience muscles.
Yes.
And prove to ourselves that we can handle whatever life throws our way.
Exactly.
But how do we like keep going
Right.
when it feels like giving up is the easier option?
Right. So one of your sources mentioned this.
Okay.
This idea of focusing on what you can control, even in the face of adversity.
Okay.
And they gave the example of a runner
Okay.
who gets injured.
Right.
He can't control the injury,
Right.
but he can control
So rehab.
his mindset, his dedication to coming back stronger.
So it's about shifting your focus away from what's holding you back
Yes.
and onto what you can do
Yes.
to move forward, even if it's just baby steps.
Even if it's baby steps. And it's about celebrating those small victories
Yeah.
and recognizing that even the smallest step in the right direction
Yeah.
is still progress.
Okay, so we've covered facing fears,
Yeah.
taking responsibility,
Uh-huh.
setting boundaries, embracing vulnerability,
Yeah.
and persevering.
We're starting to see a pattern here.
We are. It's
Yeah.
like
We're
they're all interconnected.
all interconnected.
They all build upon each other.
And they create this foundation for
Yeah.
living a life of purpose and meaning, which
Yeah.
is really what Stoicism is all about.
Okay.
And that brings us to our next strength.
Okay.
One that I think exemplifies this interconnectedness beautifully,
Okay.
lifting others up.
Okay. Now this one
Yeah.
seems a little counterintuitive,
I know.
especially in our competitive world.
It does.
How does celebrating others' successes make us stronger?
Right. Wouldn't that make you feel less successful?
Yeah.
This is where Stoicism goes beyond the individual.
Okay.
The Stoics believed in this concept called oikeiosis,
Okay.
and it's basically this natural inclination to care for others.
Okay.
And so they saw this as part of our human nature, to be concerned not just with our own well-being, but also the well-being of the people around us.
So it's not about putting others down to make ourselves feel better.
No.
It's
Yeah.
recognizing
It's about
we're all in this together.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that everyone's success contributes to the greater good.
Huh. Okay, so it's like shifting from a scarcity mindset
Yes.
to an abundance mindset.
Abundance. Yes, exactly.
Instead of saying there's only so much to go around, it's saying there's plenty.
There's enough for everybody.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this can manifest in a lot of different ways,
Okay.
Offering a word of encouragement to a colleague,
Uh-huh.
celebrating a friend's achievements,
Yeah.
mentoring someone who's just starting out.
Yeah.
These seemingly small acts can create this ripple effect
Yeah.
of positivity and support.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
By supporting others, we're not just contributing to their success,
Right.
but we're also creating a more supportive
Yes, yourself.
and collaborative environment for everybody.
That's right.
And that leads us to our final
Yes.
strength here.
Our final sign of strength.
Yeah.
Staying true to yourself.
Okay, and this one, in a world that often,
Rewards conformity.
it does.
This one feels very powerful to me
It does.
because it takes courage to stand up
Yes.
for what you believe in,
Absolutely.
to be your authentic self,
Ab-
especially when it goes against the grain.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The Stoics believed in living in accordance with nature.
Okay.
And that includes our own individual nature,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So for them, staying true to yourself wasn't just some personal preference.
Right.
It was about living in alignment with your own internal compass, with your values, your purpose.
So it's not about fitting in
No.
or seeking external validation.
No.
It's about knowing who you are,
Yes.
what you stand for,
Yes.
and living in a way that reflects that.
Precisely.
Okay.
The Stoics believed that every single person had this unique set of gifts and talents, and that it was our duty to cultivate those gifts and talents
Okay.
and to use them to contribute to the world. So staying true to yourself.
Is how you unlock that potential.
So it's about understanding
Yeah.
that your individuality
Yes.
is not a flaw.
It's an asset.
It's an asset.
It is.
Right? It's what makes you uniquely you.
Yes.
And it's what allows you to make a unique contribution
Yes.
to the world.
Exactly. And this ties back into the Stoic idea
Okay.
of living in accordance with virtue.
Yo. Okay.
So true happiness
Okay.
for the Stoics
Mm-hmm.
wasn't about external achievements or possessions. It was about living a life of integrity
Okay.
and purpose and authenticity.
Wow. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of connections here between these 7 signs.
Me too.
They're not just
Yeah.
individual strengths. It's like,
They're all intertwined.
yeah.
And they create this framework
Yeah.
for a more resilient and purposeful and meaningful life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
amazing.
Okay, so we've gone through these 7 signs, but how do we actually put this stuff
Right.
into practice? I mean, it's one thing to talk about facing your fears, but it's another to actually do it.
To actually do it.
All right.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about next time.
Okay, awesome.
All right, so stay tuned for that.
All right, everybody. So that's it for part 1 of our Stoic Strength Deep Dive. We're going to be back soon
Yes, we are.
to explore these concepts even further, and we're going to see, how we can put them into practice.
That's right.
So until then, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yes.
and keep striving
Yeah.
to become the strongest, most
right.
authentic region of yourself.
Love it.
All right, we'll talk to you next time.
See you then.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've been mapping out these 7 Stoic signs of strength.
Yeah.
And honestly,
It's pretty cool stuff.
it's been kind of a mind shift for me already.
Definitely.
But how do we actually put this stuff into practice?
Right.
It's one thing to talk about facing your fears, but it's another to actually do it, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Stoicism isn't just a philosophy to ponder. It's a set of tools for living.
Okay, so let's get practical then.
Okay.
And like break down how each of these strengths can actually like play out in your everyday life.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with facing fears.
Okay.
What does that look like outside of, say,
Yeah.
public speaking or, big life decisions?
Think small,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're terrified of networking events.
Okay.
Or maybe you avoid difficult conversations with family.
Uh-huh.
The Stoic approach isn't about suddenly becoming fearless.
Right.
It's about shifting your perspective.
Okay.
So instead of getting consumed by
Yeah.
the potential awkwardness or whatever,
Right.
what if you reframed it as an opportunity to practice courage?
Okay.
So then each uncomfortable interaction
Okay.
becomes this tiny victory,
Right.
Yeah. And it helps you build up your resilience over time.
It's like you're microdosing courage.
Exactly.
Right. You don't have to jump out of a plane. You can just
Start small.
start by speaking up in a meeting
Yeah.
when you usually stay silent.
Exactly. And remember that Stoic practice of negative visualization
Oh, yeah.
we were talking about before?
Yeah.
That can be so helpful.
Okay.
So before that networking event,
Okay.
spend a couple minutes imagining the absolute worst case scenario.
Okay.
Chances are it's not as bad as your anxiety is making it out to be.
Right. So you're
Mentally vaccinating yourself.
mentally vaccinating
Yeah.
yourself against the fear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disarming it before it has a chance to control you.
I'm digging this.
Right.
Okay. So what about taking responsibility then?
Okay.
How does that translate into daily life?
This one's all about honesty first and foremost with yourself.
Okay.
So when something goes wrong,
Uh-huh.
instead of immediately pointing fingers,
Okay.
just pause for a second
Okay.
and ask yourself, where did my choices contribute to this outcome?
Oh, okay.
And it's not about blame.
Right.
It's about recognizing your own agency in the situation.
Right. Okay.
So maybe you procrastinated on a project,
Mm-hmm.
or you avoided a tough conversation that needed to happen.
Right.
Owning those choices,
Okay.
that's what empowers you to learn from them.
So it's like turning every mistake into a feedback loop.
Exactly.
Instead of getting stuck in self-criticism, it's like, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
How can I do better next time?
That's it.
Right.
It's about shifting from a mindset of blame to a mindset of growth.
I like it.
And remember, this applies to successes too,
Oh, okay.
So instead of attributing a win solely to luck or to external factors, acknowledge the role that your efforts and your choices played.
Right.
So it reinforces that sense of agency.
Which then feeds into
Yes.
setting boundaries.
It does.
Right.
100%.
If you're clear in what you're responsible for, then you're better equipped to say no
Yes.
to the things.
To the things that drain your energy,
Yeah.
that pull you away from your values.
So how do we figure out where those boundaries should be?
That's a great question.
It feels
It can feel overwhelming,
overwhelming, yeah.
right? Where do you even start?
Yeah.
Start with your values.
Okay.
What truly matters to you? Maybe it's family time, maybe it's creative pursuits,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's contributing to your community.
Okay.
Once you've identified those core values, it becomes a lot easier
Okay.
to see what aligns with them and what doesn't.
Okay.
So if a request or an obligation
Uh-huh.
clashes with those values,
Right.
it's probably a good candidate for a no.
This reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about the
Yeah.
Stoic idea of,
Living in accordance with nature.
living in accordance with nature.
Yeah.
It's like, if we
Chicken-
consider our own,
If our values are part of our nature,
values are part of our nature,
Mhm.
then setting boundaries becomes an act of self-preservation,
it does.
right?
It's like respecting the ecosystem of our own well-being.
I love that. Okay.
Right.
Right.
And this actually segues perfectly
Okay.
into embracing vulnerability.
Okay. So how can we practice vulnerability
Yeah.
without, feeling exposed
Yeah.
or vulnerable, right?
Right. It can be as simple as expressing your true feelings in a safe environment.
Okay.
So instead of putting on a brave face when you're struggling,
Uh-huh.
confide in a trusted friend or a family member.
Right.
Say, hey, I'm having a rough day, or I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this dramatic confession.
Right.
Just an honest expression
Okay.
of your current internal state.
So it's about chipping away at that societal expectation
Yes.
to always be on.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about letting people see the real
Yeah.
messy bits and all.
And that takes us back to that idea
Yeah.
of interconnectedness.
It does.
Right.
It does.
By being vulnerable, we're inviting others to do
Yeah.
the same.
You got it.
Right.
And it deepens those connections.
And those connections can be a lifeline.
Yes.
When we're facing those inevitable
They are.
challenges in life.
Yeah. And that brings us to perseverance.
Perseverance, okay.
Yeah.
That grit, that determination.
Yeah.
Keep going when things get tough.
Yeah. So the Stoics believed that obstacles were just an inherent part of life.
Okay.
Not something to be avoided,
Right.
but something to be embraced.
Okay.
They even had a saying for this. The obstacle is the way.
I love that.
So the challenges we face
Yeah.
aren't roadblocks. They are the path itself.
So how do we turn that obstacle into a pathway then?
That's a great question.
What's the mental shift we need to make?
It's about focusing on what you can control,
Okay.
even amidst the chaos.
Okay.
So one of your sources used this example of a writer
Okay.
facing writer's block.
Right.
She can't force the inspiration to come.
Right.
But she can control her daily writing routine. She can control her research.
Right.
You know, her commitment to just showing up at her desk even when the words aren't flowing.
So it's about breaking down that challenge into smaller, more manageable actions.
Smaller, more manageable. Exactly.
Like Annabeth Superhuman.
It's about those baby steps.
That's it.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Consistently, even when it feels like you're not making any progress.
And remembering that setbacks are inevitable.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. The Stoics saw setbacks not as failures,
Okay.
but as opportunities to learn and adapt.
Okay.
So think about it this way.
Yes.
If you're hiking
Uh-huh.
and you stumble on a rock,
Right.
you don't just give up and go home.
Right.
You adjust your footing.
Yeah.
You maybe take a different path
Yeah.
and you keep moving towards your destination.
So we've tackled facing fears,
Yeah.
taking responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
setting boundaries, embracing vulnerability.
Yeah. And persevering.
It seems like each of these strengths
Yeah.
builds upon the last.
They do.
And it creates this foundation for a life
Right.
that's not only resilient,
Mm-hmm.
but also compassionate and purposeful.
Yeah.
And that brings us to lifting others up.
Okay. And that one, in a world that often feels
I know.
hyper competitive,
It does.
how do we
reconcile that?
how do we reconcile that?
Like celebrating others' success with our own ambition.
It all comes back to that Stoic concept of oikiosis
Yeah.
we were talking about before,
Yeah.
that natural inclination to care for others,
Uh-huh.
to see ourselves as part of a larger community.
Right.
So true strength for the Stoics wasn't about tearing others down to elevate yourself.
Right.
It was about recognizing that everyone's success
Okay.
contributes to the well-being of the whole.
So it's about shifting from a scarcity mindset
Yes.
to an abundance mindset.
To an abundance mindset. Exactly. Yes.
Instead of seeing it as
Like a finite pie. Yeah, like a finite pie. There's only so much to go around. It's
Right.
like, no, there's plenty.
there's enough for everybody.
Right.
Exactly. And this can manifest in so many different ways.
Right.
Offering a word of encouragement to a colleague,
Yeah.
celebrating a friend's achievements,
Uh-huh.
mentoring someone who's just starting out.
Yeah.
These seemingly small acts
Yeah.
can create this ripple effect.
It's like we're creating this invisible web of strength.
Exactly.
Great.
That's a great way to put it.
One interaction at a time.
Yes. And it leads beautifully into our final strength. Staying true to yourself.
Okay.
When you have that strong sense of self, when you're grounded in your values,
Right.
your purpose,
Yeah.
it becomes a lot easier to resist that pressure to conform.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in the shoulds and the shouldn'ts
I know it
of
is.
society.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
And try to fit in and please others.
So one of the sources you shared mentioned this Stoic practice
Yeah.
called the view from above.
Okay.
So imagine looking down at your life from a distance.
Right.
What really matters?
Uh-huh.
What will you be remembered for?
Right.
It's a way to kind of gain perspective
Right.
and reconnect with those core values.
So it's about stepping back from the day-to-day noise
Yes.
and asking am I living a life that feels authentic to me?
Exactly.
Am I making choices that align with my true self?
That's it.
Okay.
And remember, staying true to yourself
Yeah.
doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible.
Right.
It's about being open to growth and change while remaining grounded in your core values.
Right. Okay.
So it's about embracing that journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
and recognizing that who you are today is not necessarily who you'll be tomorrow.
It's like that quote from Heraclitus, no man ever steps in the same river twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
For it's not the same river and he's not the same man.
Exactly. We're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So staying true to yourself is
Yeah.
about honoring that evolution while remaining connected
Yeah.
to the core of who you are.
Okay, so we've taken these 7 Stoic signs of strength and we've kind of brought them down to earth.
We have.
Right.
Yes.
We've explored how we can actually embody them in our daily lives.
Yes.
And it's not about becoming superhuman. It's about making small, consistent choices that align with these principles.
And they all work together, you know?
It's like a chain reaction.
It is. It's synergistic.
Yeah.
So, you know, facing your fears builds courage, which empowers you to take responsibility,
Right.
which allows you to set boundaries and so on and so forth.
Yes, it's like a chain reaction.
It is a positive change.
A positive change not just within ourselves,
Right.
but also in the world around us.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Well, that's what we're going to explore in our final segment.
Okay.
We're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture
Okay.
of Stoic strength.
And how all of these seemingly individual qualities can actually ripple outward and create a more meaningful life.
Okay.
Not just for ourselves,
Right.
but for everyone.
All right, so stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
The deep dive continues. Okay, so we've gone through these 7 Stoic signs of strength.
We have.
From, facing fears to staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my initial skepticism has turned into
I love that.
like almost hope. I don't know, is that too cheesy?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think that's the heart of Stoicism. you
Yeah.
know? It's
Okay.
not about like denying the difficulties of life.
Right.
It's about finding a way to like navigate them with grace and purpose.
Right.
And that's where all these strikes come in.
Yeah.
You know, they're not just about personal growth.
Right.
They're about creating this ripple effect
Mhm.
of positive change
Okay.
out in the world.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to get is like,
Yeah.
when we practice these things genuinely, it's like they become a contribution to something larger than ourselves.
Think about it. When we face our fears,
Yeah.
we're not just like overcoming a personal obstacle.
Right.
We're actually modeling courage
Right.
for other people.
It's like we're giving them permission
Yeah, we are.
to do the same.
Exactly. And when we take responsibility for our actions,
Yeah.
we're contributing to a more accountable
Right.
and trustworthy society.
And when we set healthy boundaries,
Yes.
we're not just protecting our own well-being,
Right.
but we're also like teaching other people how to respect our limits.
Exactly. It's like this silent revolution.
It is like a silent revolution.
These everyday acts of stoic strength.
And it's contagious, I think.
It is contagious.
When we embrace vulnerability,
Yes.
it's like we create space for others to do the same.
Yes.
Right.
We foster deeper connections and empathy.
And when we persevere through challenges,
Yeah.
it's like we inspire those around us to keep going.
Yes.
To not give up on their own goals.
That's right.
And when we lift others up,
Uh-huh.
it's not just being nice. It's
They
like
are.
we're actively contributing to a more collaborative
Yeah.
and supportive world.
And you said it before, it's like
Yeah.
we're weaving this invisible web of strength,
Yeah.
one interaction at a time.
And the beauty is it doesn't require like these grand gestures or super heroic feats.
It's the small things,
It's the small things.
the consistent choices,
Yeah.
the everyday moments
Yeah.
where we choose like courage over fear,
Right.
responsibility over blame, authenticity over pretense.
So it's not about being some kind of like
Stoic sage.
up on a mountaintop.
No, it's about bringing these principles
Yeah.
into the messy reality.
Yeah. The messy, imperfect reality
The imperfect reality of daily life.
of our daily lives.
Exactly, and being that calm in the storm,
Yeah.
being the voice of reason, right? In a world that often feels so chaotic and unpredictable.
It's a powerful, powerful contribution, I think.
It is.
So we actually got a question from one of our listeners.
Oh, cool.
And I think this captures this idea perfectly.
Okay.
They asked, how can I use these stoic strengths to make a difference in a world that often feels so divided and overwhelming?
Wow, what a great question.
Right.
It really speaks to like the core
Yeah.
of what Stoicism is all about, finding peace and purpose amidst the chaos.
Yeah.
And the answer, I believe,
Uh-huh.
is that we don't have to solve all the world's problems single-handedly.
Right.
We could start by embodying these strengths
Yeah.
in our own lives,
Right.
in our interactions with other people.
It's like that Gandhi quote, be the change you wish to see in the world.
I love that quote.
Right.
Yeah.
But instead of focusing on these grand,
Yeah.
sweeping changes,
Big steps.
it's like we can focus on those small,
yes.
seemingly insignificant
things.
acts of courage and kindness and integrity.
Exactly. Imagine a world
Yeah.
where everyone practiced
Yeah.
even just one of these Stoic strengths
Right.
consistently. Think
Yeah.
about the collective impact.
It would be huge.
It would be huge, right?
It's like a domino effect.
It is the domino effect.
One person's act of courage
Yes.
inspires another.
And another, and another.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And then that web of strength that we were talking about.
It becomes this force, this powerful force.
For positive change.
For good, yeah.
And it all starts with that, like...
That individual
commitment.
to look inward.
Yeah.
And cultivate these strengths
Yeah.
within ourselves.
And recognizing that we each have the power to make a difference.
Yeah.
Not by changing the world.
Right.
But by changing ourselves.
So as we're,
Yeah.
wrapping up this deep dive.
Yeah.
What's, like, one final thought
Okay, let me think.
you'd like to leave our listeners with? Okay,
And-
like, what's the...
I think the key takeaway, the essence of Stoic strength,
Yeah.
is this. True strength lies not in what we can control,
Uh-huh.
but in how we respond
Right.
to what we can't.
I like that.
So it's about choosing courage over fear,
Uh-huh.
wisdom over reactivity,
Okay.
compassion over judgment.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we are all interconnected.
Yeah.
Our actions have these ripple effects.
Right.
And that even the smallest act of strength can make a difference.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I would add to that,
Okay.
don't be intimidated by this word stoicism.
Yeah, it's not about
Not about being
an emotionless robot.
an emotionless robot.
Right.
Or living some kind of, like, deprived life.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah,
It's about finding a path
that is.
to inner peace, resilience, and purpose.
And a path that allows us to not just survive life's challenges,
Yeah.
but to actually thrive in spite of them.
So well put.
It's about recognizing that strength is
Yeah.
not a destination.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, yeah.
It's a process of growth, of
Yeah.
learning,
Right.
self-discovery.
And it's a journey that we can all embark on, I think.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter your background, your
Yeah.
beliefs, your
Uh-huh.
circumstances.
Right. We all have that power within us.
We do.
All right. So
It is.
that is a wrap
It is.
for our deep dive
It is.
into the 7 signs of strength according to Stoicism.
I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, we hope you found it
Yeah.
insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
I hope so.
So until next time,
Yeah.
keep diving deep,
Yeah,
keep
keep diving.
questioning,
Keep learning.
and keep striving to become the strongest,
Yes.
most authentic version of yourself.
Absolutely. You got this.
You got this. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.